Hi guys, and welcome back to another fly tying tutorial. So what you see in the vise is just a very simple cruncher. So without further ado, let's get into it. The hook in the vise is a Hanak H230 barbless hook. This one's at size 10, it's on a medium wire and it's in black nickel. The thread I'm going to be using today is from Simplify. It's a classic waxed thread at 6/0. As you can see, it's red. And first thing I'm going to do is just get a little bit more wax onto the thread. This just helps adhere it to the shank. I'm going to catch just in behind the eye and bring it up the shank. Now the reason I'm doing this video is I recently on Facebook posted about bogey flies, you know, and mine was a snatcher, which I've tried to address and tie last week. But in the comments section I was quite amazed at how many people that said crunchers were their bogey flies. Now for me it's one of my most successful patterns. This one in particular is very good, but I've had success with different colours as well. I just think it's a really good pattern, so I thought I would tie it. And if you're one of these people that think it is your bogey fly, then please do give it a go again and give it a second chance. So for the tailing fibres, what I'm using is this cock hackle. Now the reason I don't use pheasant tail is if you use the pheasant tail, which I will be using for the body, after a couple of fish the tail tends to get snapped off because the pheasant tail is quite brittle, whereas the cock hackle, it's quite mobile and it will stay there as long as the fly is in one piece. So that's what I'm going to be using. I'm going to take quite a generous amount of the fibres off the back, and then I'll dress it up to the shank of the hook, and I want about the length of the shank. Then I can hold that in place like so, get a couple of loops just to hold it into place, and then keeping the tail up, this will keep it on the shank of the hook rather than twisting and moving round the side, which can often happen when you're tying in your tail. Now I'm going to remove this clump at the front, not all of it but a good chunk of it, because I want to keep the body as fairly even as I can. So that's the tail attached. Now for the rib I'm going to be using silver wire. It's at 0.1. Now I would have preferred 0.2, but I've run out of that, so I'm using 0.1, which isn't quite as pronounced as the 0.2mm. So I'm going to catch that on my way back down like so. And yeah, really surprised that people were saying the cruncher was the bogey fly. It's been a staple in my box, certainly for nymphing, for a number of years. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use some pheasant tail fibres from a dyed feather. And I've already pulled a few bits off here, and I've tried to align the tips as best I can. I like to get the very tips away, and then what I'm going to do is dress that just under my thread there, and then I can catch that in like so. Now I'm going to bring it to the front of the hook, and I'm going to use the rotary function of my vise to bring the body up, and to do that I've got to get a few extra turns in at the front here, so when I turn the vise the thread doesn't wind all the way back to where I started. Now if you watched the video the other week about just getting started in fly tying, I do explain about the not the necessity but the desirability, if you like, to start off with an inline rotary vise. And what is the advantage I'm getting here is when I turn the vise I'm able to avoid the hook point. When you're doing it by hand sometimes you can catch the hook point, and with body material like pheasant tail a lot of the time you can end up in a lot of trouble because it is a brittle material. Now I've put too many extra wraps in, so I'm going to come back and bring my thread back to where my body's finished there. Just using my hackle pliers to hold that in place while I get 2 or 3 turns just to capture in that pheasant tail. Once I've done that, I'll get a couple of turns in front, and as I'm releasing my I've forgotten what it's called. Oh dearie me, sometimes Lindsay. As I'm releasing my I still can't remember. It'll come to me in a minute. Hackle pliers, that's it, hackle pliers. Jeez, oh, that's old age, man. Right, so the next thing I want to do is bring up the rib, and I want to go in the opposite direction I did with the pheasant tail. So I'm going to bring that up. I'm trying to keep my turns fairly even. It's not a showstopper if they're not even. The idea of this rib here is mostly to protect the gentle. I'm not having a good day, am I? the brittle pheasant tail. So I've got that in place, and I'm just about showing you how to tie a fly here. Just about. I'm just going to butterfly the wire rib away, and I've now got my body and everything ready. So for the thorax of this, and I've used various different things for thoraxes over the years. I've used mirror tinsel, peacock herald's one of my favourites. I've also built it up with just pheasant tail. So today I'm going to use peacock herald, and I've got 3 strands here. It's nice and bushy. It really does fluff out this stuff. Now when I'm doing dial backs, what I tend to do with this is take a rubber to it and just thin it out a little. But for the cruncher, in fact here's the stuff I'm using. Select Peacock Herald from Troutline. Really lovely long bushy swords. So I'm going to catch that in like so, and I want to just come back 2 or 3 turns so I get a nice big thorax here. So I'll just come round. Now you can do it with 1 or 2 bits of peacock herald, it can be done, but I find when you do it with 3 you just get a much more pronounced thorax, which is what I want for this particular cruncher variation. Now I've tied in a couple of wraps to hold that into place, and I'll take that away. So we've got a nice big thorax, we've got a nice segmented body, and we've got our tail that won't come off after the first couple of fish. Just going to damp down my thumb and forefinger and sweep that back. Now people will argue black and white about the kind of hackle to use at the front. Some people say you've got to use cock hackle. I like to use a hen hackle. So I've got a black hen hackle here, and what's the difference? Well, a cock hackle would obviously be a lot stiffer. It would cause the fly to, if you ginked it up, it would probably float. But the hen hackle, I think, gives you a lot more movement with a fly. Hence, that's why I use it. So what I'm going to do is get the tip into my hackle pliers, well remembered, and I'm going to pull it down until I've got a Christmas tree, like so. And then what I can do is just tidy that up with my fingers. It's not quite gone as planned. Well, the whole video really, but never mind. But I've just trimmed it down, and then I can come in with my scissors and just leave myself a little handle to tie in, like so. Now crunchers in various sizes are super effective, and sometimes when they're going really well, I'll just fish 4 of them, and they might all be the same. If they're preferring the black, I've got no qualms in sticking 4 black crunchers on a cast and twiddling it back. You can mix it up, of course, with various other things, dial backs, muskins, but you know, if they're having the cruncher, then why not fish 4 of them? It works great on a midge tip. It can also be a great fly for the washing line because it's so light. Using a medium wire hook here, it's going to fish nice and high in the water column. So I like to get a reasonable hackle onto the front. So I've got about 2.5 tons here at the moment, where I bring my thread, just feeding it through the fibres to hold it into place. And what I'm going to do next is just release my hackle pliers. Now I'm going to damp down my thumb and forefinger again so I can get it swept back, everything swept back, keep it nice and neat, and then you can start building your head. So I've got it to that point. I can then pull that hackle away. Just make sure it's all sitting nice and tidy, and then I can come in with my whip finisher and tidy that up. Now, to finish off, you can use varnish, super glue or resin. It's up to you. Today I'm going to use a little bit of varnish, and the way I'm going to apply it, so a lot of these varnishes that come, you can see they've got a big thick brush. I really don't understand why companies cannot just get a narrow skinny brush, but I'm going to transfer some of that varnish to a cocktail stick, and then I can just come in very gently. Try not to get any on your hackling, because that will ruin the fly. And there we go. The job's a good one. Apologies for me forgetting half the stuff, but there we go. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please do like and share the video if it gave you some value, and I'll see you all in the next one.